Okay, so now we are on week 4. So if you're in my class, we will have a little, I always call these checkpoints. There is a checkpoint that you will have to demonstrate some chords, some pop music, strum some chords, and then power chords, of course. Read power chord charts. But if you're just doing this for fun, hey, do whatever you want with this information. You can skip ahead if you're so inclined, but I think it's good information. So power chords are basically, they're not actual tertian chords. They're 2 notes that we call power chords. They're what you call a perfect fifth in the music theory interval land. And you can play them with a perfect fifth on an octave, or you can just play them with a perfect fifth. So power chords they sound like this. Or if you want to do it with the extra octave, but simplest way to do it is just with those 2 notes. So when you're playing power chords, what you're doing is you're just hitting 2 strings. You're only hitting the strings that you're playing. That's the first part of it. It's not this. You're not playing all the strings like we were with the open chords. These are very specific to the notes that you are fretting. The good thing about power chords is the shape is exactly the same. So the shape is always like this. So if I'm on the 1st fret, that F, all right, my first finger is on the F of the 6th string, the 1st fret of the 6th string, and then my 4th or my 3rd finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. So you can kind of think about it like your first finger here and then 3 up from the 1st position, or however, a skip from that 2nd fret, but that's the shape that it'll stay forever. Okay? So you can do these shapes for our purposes right now. Let's just stick with doing them on the 6th string and the 5th string. They're the same intervallic relationship. So if I base this off of the 6th string, it's like this, and if I base it off the 5th string, it's the same shape. Okay, so you're just playing the same shape, and it moves around up and down the neck with your fingers. Quite simply, just like that, and you're not hitting other strings. So if you miss other strings, no problem. If you hit other strings, it's not the end of the world. But the idea is you're just trying to hit those 2 strings, that perfect fifth. Now, how you label power chords is a great thing to know about, especially when you're going through and you're learning these when you're learning pop songs or when you're playing your own pop tunes. And if you know the names of the notes, it's incredibly simple. It's wherever your first finger is at. That is what you call the power chord. So if I put my finger on the G of the 6th string and I play that power chord, that's a G power chord. If I put my finger on the B, right, and then I build the power chord from that. So that's a G power chord to a B power chord. And if I want to play B flat, like we're talking about the half steps and full steps, it's a B flat, right? So, and that's the same thing is true with the 5th string, wherever my first finger is at. The finger that the first finger, wherever it's at, that is the name of the power chord. Typically, power chords are labeled with a little 5 above the chord to delineate it from the open chords. But also, you'll hear that in music. You should be able to hear the difference between a C power chord, right? If you have a C power chord in a tune and a C open chord, they're quite different. So you'll be able to hear that probably just from listening, even if this is all new to you. So the big thing with power chords, and what I always say the best way to work on power chords is to write your own power chord songs. That's right, write your own power chord tunes. So if you take your power chords and you play any of the notes in any order, it'll kind of sound cool. So if I go G, F sharp, G sharp. It can be anything, really anything will sound cool. And I think it's a lot of fun too if you can kind of let yourself just play around with it and realize this is how the pop music you listen to, a lot of tunes, especially from the 90s, with the grunge rock stuff, they were all power chords. Most Elvis tunes are power chords, right? Tons of Rolling Stones. Most eras of music use a lot of power chords. So moving around, playing these up and down the neck like this is just a very, very practical and cool thing to be able to do. And then you can use it in your own music. You can use it with songs that we'll learn later. And the other thing I like to talk about is working with an exercise that sort of just helps you get comfortable with that. When you play power chords, you can actually mute the strings. This is a little more complicated. You can hit all the strings and mute with your fingers. If you want to play around with that, I won't go into how to do it because it's a little bit wonky right now for where you're at with guitar probably. But you can do that, but you can also just be very accurate with where you hit the strings. And so what I always say is a good exercise to practice is just doing a power chord picking exercise, 2-string exercise with a pick. And what you can do is you can just simply go, sort of like that walking exercise, but now we're doing it with strings, right? With 2 strings. And you can try, of course, different rhythms. But that's kind of what you're doing when you're playing the power chords. So getting that into your into your picking hand can make a big difference with how you feel on the playing your own power chords there. So that's when you'll see these will come up in blues. You'll see them come up in rock music. You'll see them come up in all sorts of stuff, and they also will set us up for bar chords later and how we learn to read those. So it's a wonderfully fun thing to do. Let yourself have fun with it, and you can write your own rock tunes now with that knowledge. And I'm being completely serious. I promise that is how people figured out rock tunes. Who have pop hits and rock hits and whatever else. They're just playing with chords they like the sound of. There's no rules as to what's right or wrong inside of this too. So that concludes pretty much what we're talking about for week 4. We'll go on to week 5 here, doing some other exercises and talking a little bit about blues with power chords.